All right, welcome to the channel. This is part 4 of the Brave drawing of Merida. All right, I figured I'd do this little few minutes here just to show how I'm doing the arrowhead. Um, I had some malfunctions earlier. Actually, I had to turn everything off, and as you can tell, if from the last video, I did the hair, the entire dress, the werewolf or the wolf behind the tree, the uh, leaves, or I should say the plants sticking out of the rocks. So I covered all that. I finished the bow, the filigree that goes, the details on the bow. I'm finishing the arrowhead right about now. Um, so yes, I have an old camera on an old phone, and so I have to charge it faster and earlier than ever before. All right, let me pull this together here. Let's get back to the business of this tutorial and drawing here. All right, so as I've said before, I'm very much for cursive lines, lines that bend and slither around the page, so to speak. As you can tell, these original drawing penciled lines, and mostly blue pencil, but he did use a little bit of graphite. This is a friend of mine, comic book artist, and Carlos Franco. He did the claws of the bear, so they're pretty angular here. But I'm probably going to I'll work on them a little bit. I'm probably going to bend those straight lines a little bit. I don't think any one of the bare bones or bare claws are necessarily super straight or super sharp straight. They would have an elongated line here at the bottom and the top. This would definitely be a curvature at the apex of the claw itself. All right, let's get back to the arrowhead. Hopefully, I'm not in the way here with my big head. Hold on, folks. Here we go. And I'm using a 0.01 to make sure that this arrowhead comes out as as oof, that's gonna be tough a little bit here. Hold on. All right, hopefully everybody can hear me. Uh, and the mic is as functioning as it should. This is very. Whenever I work with a ruler, I have other ones. I have a 18-inch long one. This is 12-inch. It's just a basic standard Westcott. But what I love about it, obviously, it's see-through. But as you can tell here, for those that like to ink, is that it is. Let me see if I can get the right angle here. It has a straight edge on the backside. So if you're using a quill, and if you're using a inking pen or even a brush, you can run the brush along here. But it has a beveled surface. Let me see if I got this right. There you can see it. See the beveling? So you'll run your metal guard of the pen point right there. All right, enough of the boring part of all this, I guess, for some folks, but not if you're into this. The art itself. All right, hold on. We're going to make one slim line that has to be right in the middle, and I'm trying to find that middle spot. Yep, found it. Let me see how that looks. All right, hold on a second. I got to scoot that up a little bit. There we go. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more of the hair, finish that up. Let me bring this back to right side up for your viewing perception here. Hold on a second, folks. Here we go. Bear with me as I move everything around. So as I was saying previously, what seems like hours ago, because it took a while to charge this phone up to get the camera to work and all that good stuff, all the technical boring stuff, but that has to be done for these channels. As you can tell, this bright red, she's a ginger, so, but it's very, very curly. He did a magnificent job of laying down the basic lines for the hair, and if it isn't Yeah. Well, none of this would be obvious to anyone. I'm going to assume that we've never met, and I'm sure most of my viewers and I have never met up until the time they choose to view this video or any of the other videos. Oh, we go. My point being, I love to draw hair, and other artists that I talk with, or probably some friends that know about my art, would probably know that. Um, some artists in particular shy away from drawing hair, and there's such a variety of hair and hairstyles. You'll see that in some of my sketchbooks, some of my sketches in general. Uh, whether it's curly, whether it's kinky, whether it's call it what you will, unkempt, combed. Um, it's all fascinating to draw. And to ink, since I'm doing this over the original pencils of Mr. Franco, and trying to make sure that every curvature that he put in here has a place in my inks. There are some strands of hair that are going to be interlocked, and that you have to remember to do, but in other words, drawing underneath something and above something to create that three-dimensional effect that I'll be I've already started talking about and I'll be ranting about here on my channel. And if I forgot, welcome to Right Life Draw. Um, Whoever's here, you're welcome to be here and to come and visit again and again as I post these videos. Again, as I think I've written on the channel already, I'll put it on the community tab as well. This channel will be for art, art that I will be doing and working on, some pre-recorded lives like I'm doing here because I can't do a real live as I don't have 50 subscribers yet. I think that's the prescribed number that YouTube desires for us to have before we go live on anything. Also, we're doing some unboxings of graded comics. Okay, we're gonna get into the bear because I should have done this already. I usually work from the top down, but okay. I started with the main character, which is Merida. I won't need the notes here, so I'm gonna have to let that sit for a minute. Let me make sure all that ink is all dried up. Usually that's not a problem. These are fast drying inks, but if you use a quill, which is what most people refer to as a dip pen, and you dip it in ink, that takes a minute to dry, or a couple of minutes, and you want to make sure you don't smudge or smear all across your board, your Bristol board, or your sketchbook, or wherever you're using it. Let me do a video check. Okay, there we go. We'll have to do this sideways. This will come off view, but that's okay. You're going to focus here on what I'm. So yeah, I guess as I was commenting earlier on my inking, see here these fine aspects of the wolves here were added in pencil and graphite later, and that's great because it's like a finer detail that see these. Oh, you want to make the base of the hair. Wait, hold on a second. This is the fur. It's really more fur than it is hair, but at least in the sense that we humans think of it. Bears don't have hair per se, but they have fur. I think I got that right. I gotta make sure that I get the texture down right. At least that's my goal as an inker. Whether it's fur, hair, hair on a human, fur on a giant bear, feathers of a bird, or the reflections of light on a metal blade, broadsword or katana. I love drawing that as well. Or maybe it's the reflection of the light on Iron Man's armor. That's something that Bob Layton was so adept at doing. One of the reasons he was so beloved as an inker, he could illustrate and ink anything, but boy, was he good at doing metal work. Okay, hold on. All right, let me see if I got this. I'm gonna pull this out, pull that out, pull that out. You see that? Pull that out and pull that out. All right, and this one's gonna come here. All these nuances. Once you let the pen point rest, it's gonna create a bubble of ink. I could use a thicker line, but I don't really want to do that. I want to be faithful to what Mr. Franco did originally, and not get into the issue of embellishing too much. I mean, there's going to be some minor tweaks that I might do as an inker, but it's like I said, minor. So, anyways, folks, if you're liking these videos, if this is your first time visiting the channel, I'd sure like to see you come through again. I'll be posting these up hopefully weekly, maybe twice a week, depending on my schedule. I have a work life schedule I got to keep. Okay, so here we're gonna do this, and we're gonna make sure that we get, we're gonna bend that line. I'll probably do that with a brush later. All right, so that's another thing I needed to. Oh, well, where was I? Let's talk about business first. The business of YouTube. By all means, leave a comment, hopefully longer than 7 words. I was told that that's the magic for the algorithm, right? They prefer to see comments that are 7 words or more. If not, a simple hello will do. If you can share this video with other folks, I'd appreciate it. Who would be interested in how to draw and learning how some particular artist does what he does. In this case, me. And we're gonna create a little bit of depth there. That's another thing. Even with hair or fur on an animal, you can create depth. I think I've seen other artists draw or ink in such a way that it doesn't show that, but it should. Everything has depth as we perceive it in a three-dimensional world. So, and we're luckily enough to be able to at least, we may not perceive everything else in the spectrum of light, and we don't. We can't see an ultraviolet. We can't see an infrared, which is why, again, if you go hunting or use a rifle as I have in the past, and use a sight or an infrared sighting, then it will allow you to see. Hold on a second. In the night, and then of course there's infrared for that. And what am I missing out here? Being able to see devices that allow us to see in the fullness of night, which our eyes can't perceive or see with the absence of light, I should say. I've always been fascinated by light and how we perceive it. I guess maybe I couldn't articulate all this when I was a kid, but as you get older, you read more, you learn. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I love science and math. I always just loved science since I was a kid, learning how the structure of reality works, so to speak. And it's really helpful when you're drawing, and you get to understand things like, again, this is all, of course, simulation. It's make believe. It's art. It's drawing or inking an image on a two-dimensional board, but still, I think that that benefits an artist in the long run, whether they're just specifically a comic book artist or you do portraits or just great artists on what is his name? All these names elude me when I get to the board for some reason. I just focus on what I'm doing. But we're going to do the circle. We could use the template that's sitting in front of me, but we're going to do this freehand and be truthful to what Mr. Franco did. So there's the opal or black onyx jewel that's on the crown of the queen, Merida's mother. You can tell that I did a little sweep there for the bottom of the hair to make it just more luscious. And then these lines, I like to make them a little bit. I like to bend them up. I don't like them to be too straight, as um, I've never seen hair on a human or even maybe a porcupine. I'd have to look into that, but not a bear or a human has strands of hair that are just completely straight. So, and I'm sure that if Mr. Franco is watching this at some point in the future, he will concur with me and allow me this minor embellishment of lines to make them look as authentic as I can. That's another thing that I haven't mentioned before. I mean, what is the goal to do all this besides, a commission, a drawing, fun, uh, you know, side hustle, making money? It's, well, let's see if this sounds weird or not, but for me, it's what I'm looking for. It's, sometimes therapeutic comes to mind, but besides that, it's meditative. That's the word I'm looking for. This is completely meditative for me, to the point where if I do it enough, the penciling, the inking, sometimes the coloring, I feel like I could do it, on autopilot. Maybe there's some trait or talent you have, you folks watching this, whomever you are, whenever you're watching this, that you could, mention in the comments. Tell me, tell us, what's your given super trait or your gift or your talent, whether naturally come by or studied or a mixture of both. What is it that, and is there something that you can do better than most people around you or in your family or your friends that you just automatically learned to do? And just now, after many years of practice, you just know how to do intuitively. So we're going to purposely extend this line. I hope my pen's not drying out. No, I worry about this sometimes. But I usually can see the drawing of the pen coming. We're going to get that. All right. Let's get that hair just right for the... let me check the pen, though. And the time while we're at it. Oops. All right, folks. We're out of time. We're going to continue this on part 5. And I think I'm going to use my 0.1 for the bear's hair. All right. See you on the next one. Thank you for being here.